Hello friend, welcome back to my garden. My name is Kimberly if you're new, and today I want to show you what's been going on. Now I've been home from a trip for 2.5 weeks. I was gone for nearly a month, and it's going to take a while for me to get this garden back up to full production. But I'll give you a tour and we can see together what's going on. So recently I've decided I'm going to give these beds numbers. This big bed right here, I recently harvested a lot of sweet potatoes out of here. It was kind of an experiment. We have sweet potatoes in our lower garden and they produce pretty well. We get all the sweet potatoes we want to eat, but they often end up kind of misshapen. And I wanted to see if I grew them here in one of my garden beds, if I could get some nice, smooth sweet potatoes like I would find at the grocery store. They grew really lush and green. We had so many leaves. They were spilling right out of the bed on both sides. And they grew and grew and grew for about 9 months. And when I tried digging up a few plants on the edges, I was very disappointed with the harvest that I got. But when we got in here and dug this up completely, we found so many sweet potatoes. So I'm going to say this was actually a raving success. But in the meantime, I didn't have anything new that I could plant in there in the way of plants. Normally, I order little seedlings, I pot them up, I have them in pots for a week or two, and then I put them in my garden as soon as I have something harvested. Well, I didn't have anything because I was gone. So what I've done is I've put some seeds here in this bed, a variety of different seeds. I can see that some of the bok choy seedlings are starting to come up. So I've got these sticks here. They are there to try to discourage the dogs from running through here and digging through here. We also had these pieces of bamboo that we purchased to build the walls of our new chicken house. We had those laid on top of here for the same purpose. When I gardened in Alaska, the worst garden pest that I dealt with was very large Alaskan slugs. But occasionally I'd also get deer or bear in my garden. Here in Ecuador, the worst garden pest I deal with is neighborhood dogs, including the 2 that actually live here. And so I do a variety of things when I've planted seeds to try to keep the dogs from digging up the bed. So that's the first bed. This second bed here, I pulled out a lot of very mature, overgrown, dying zucchini plants, and now this also has some seeds in it that I planted. I know I planted black beans, and I know I planted some radishes, and the radishes are coming up already. I planted this bed 6 days ago, and since I had it covered, those radishes popped up kind of long and leggy. So I'm going to have to keep the bamboo off of there for now. 2 weeks ago, I planted these little pea seedlings. This is part of an experiment I'm doing to see what variety of peas will grow best for me. And so I've got everything labeled. And so they're coming up. They're not all up yet. This would be bed number 3. And so I've got some purple cabbages growing here. Bed number 4, I also have purple cabbages. These are about ready to harvest. We've been harvesting a lot of them. And all of our chickens and ducks have been getting like a head of cabbage each day, some bok choy and some lettuce each day, because those are things that we have in abundance and we've been sharing with them. Now coming over here, this would be bed 9, and I'm really happy with how these carrots are coming along. I planted these 11 weeks ago, and they're lush and full and green. I couldn't be happier. We're having one of our rare overcast days here today, and I'm really grateful for that because I've got a lot of seeds in the ground right now. Since I have a lot of empty spaces in my garden, I'm trying to get things back up into full production again after my trip. And right now, my garden just needs to stay moist. My soil needs to stay moist so that my seeds can germinate. So this is just the perfect weather. So here's some zucchini plants that are just coming into production, which is great because Most of my zucchini plants are on their last leg, or I've just recently ripped them out. This bed I would call bed number 8, and this is the last of my bok choy, looking pretty sad. That's going to the chickens. I've got a little bit of cilantro there, just some marigolds growing wild. Marigolds just come up in my garden everywhere. They grow like a weed, and so does the sweet alyssum. And I just let them grow until they get in my way or until they start looking a little ugly and going to seed, and then I pull them up. So this bed, let's see, this would be bed number 7. We've got some great looking broccoli plants. My garden does really well. The climate here is perfect for growing broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage. I grow a lot of those. Not sure when these will be ready, but they're looking great. And then this bed would be number 6, the last of our lettuce. I've pulled spent zucchini plants out of here. Bed number 5, I've got some cilantro, I've got some fennel, some chard, some onions that don't seem to be bulbing onions. Not sure what I'm going to do with those, but we'll find something. So coming up here, this would be bed number 10. Now when I left on my trip, this bed was full of cauliflower, almost ready to be harvested. It was harvested, and I had some plants that I already had potted up, ready to go in the ground, and these were planted while I was gone. Then there was some very dry weather, and they didn't get the care and the water that they needed as new, young, tender seedlings, so it's very spotty. About half of the plants have died. I've put in some cilantro seeds, and those are doing great. I also planted a few pinto beans just to have something. I hate to have empty space in my garden. I'm trying to find out whether my pinto beans are bush beans or pole beans, because I want to plant a whole field of pinto beans, but I'd like to know if they need to have the support of a pole or not, or if they're just going to grow on a bush. So that's just a little experiment. I've got a few more of them here, just to take up some of this space where some of the other plants had died. So that's bed number 10. Bed 11, I still have my spinach patch. I'm still harvesting some from that. A lot of these zucchini plants are really in bad shape. I've pulled some out. I need to pull that one out. But I'm still getting a little bit of production from some of them. Got a volunteer cabbage, don't know where that came from. And more zucchini, but I want to show you this big one here. This massive zucchini, I want to let that produce seeds. So I've not done this before. I'm just going to let it grow and grow and grow until it gets really mature and hard. And then I can save the seed from it. Because when I order my seedlings, I have a minimum order of 25 of each variety of plants. I don't need 25 zucchini plants. And I like to grow both the green and the yellow. So I usually end up ordering 25 green zucchini plants, 25 yellow zucchini plants, and then trying to find someone else that wants some of them. But what would really be great is if I could just plant my own from seed. So that's an experiment. We'll see how that goes. I love experimenting in the garden, trying new things. You don't know unless you try. Here I've got some more young onion plants. They're looking okay. Bunch of cilantro, some other herbs, more broccoli. Now over here is more of the peas that I've planted for my pea experiment. And then these beans were planted 7 weeks ago. They're a green bean, and so we're gonna have to get them some support soon because they're gonna wanna climb. So that would be bed 10, 11, 12. So this would be bed number 13. I've got some bulbing onions here that are looking great. And I'm excited to see that my cauliflower is almost ready to harvest. So that's looking really good. There's a lot of them in here. These will be ready to be harvested in the next week, within the next week, probably 10 days. More nice looking broccoli, another random zucchini plant. I guess it didn't fit where I had the others. Here's another experiment, one that I'm gonna say was not a raving success. I usually grow celery in my greenhouse, but I wanted to try growing celery outside and see how it did. It's growing, but it's not flourishing. So as soon as I have other plants to put in there, I'll be taking this out. You see a ladybug there. I'm always happy to see ladybugs. Here's another bed that's waiting for plants. I've got some spent spinach, but my spinach is growing some seeds, so I'm just letting that produce seeds for now. For someone who doesn't like cilantro, I sure do grow a lot of it. I just have tens of thousands of cilantro seeds I've collected from my plants. It does really well here, but they just have to continually be replanted. So there's some cilantro. Some more sad looking broccoli plants. They're not flourishing as well as mine usually do. I think those must have been planted while I was gone. But this broccoli over here, we've been harvesting broccoli. So this would be bed number 16. And this broccoli is doing well. They're not the prettiest broccoli I've ever grown, but we'll take them. Had plenty of that to share and to eat. And then on the other side of this bed, there's more cauliflower that's not ready yet. So in this little area of the garden, I had a lot of nasturtiums growing here, and they were growing all over the place and spilling over the wall. I thought they were beautiful, but my husband didn't like them. So while I was gone on my trip, he pulled them out. So I planted some other flowers here, some bachelor buttons, I think some asters, some phlox, just some other seeds, and they're starting to come up, but so are the nasturtiums. I'm gonna have to do a lot of weeding in here to pull out all these nasturtium plants so that they don't take over the bed and crowd out everything else. I'm not sure why my husband doesn't like the nasturtiums. I think they're beautiful. They grow like weeds. Maybe we just have too many of them and he wants to see something else. Now this sad looking plant here, this is a milkweed. And whenever it has leaves, the monarch butterflies find it and lay their caterpillars. And we'll have sometimes 50 caterpillars on this plant, just eating it down to nothing. I'd like to let it produce some seed so I could have some more milkweed plants, but it really doesn't get a chance to produce seed before it's just eaten down to nothing. But it is trying to regrow. I see some new growth on it, so that's great. And we've had some, I don't know if you can see this, we had recently a monarch butterfly that came out of this chrysalis. I've got another chrysalis up here, right there. That one will be emerging soon. So I have a few more milkweed plants, and I'm really excited that this one is having a chance to flower. See the monarch butterfly there? This one has a damaged wing. I'm not sure what went wrong there, but I've been seeing it in the garden for a few days, so it is surviving. This morning, my son and I put it onto this milkweed that has some leaves on it, so it'll have a chance to lay some eggs. Now, if this is able to, oh great, there's a ladybug there. If this is able to produce seed, that'd be wonderful, because I'd like to have a lot more milkweed in my garden for the monarchs. See if I can get a better shot of that butterfly. Yeah, I just don't know what happened with its wing, or if it'll straighten itself out or not. I found another milkweed plant here. This one was almost completely obscured by some other plants, some Nicotiana and some volunteer cosmos, so I pulled those out to give this a little bit more room. This is lush with leaves. I'm surprised it's not absolutely teeming with caterpillars. Maybe they couldn't find it either. So that's what's going on in this part of the garden. I call this my main garden or my upper garden. And it's going to take a little while for me to get it back into full production. I have ordered more seedlings that will be coming on Tuesday. Today's Sunday, so I'll be getting some more seedlings, but I'll be potting them up and kind of babying them in the garage for a few days so they don't get scorched in the sun. I know there's no sun right now, but there probably will be sun tomorrow. And I'll get them well established before I put them out into the garden. In the meantime, I'm hoping some of my seedlings will do well. So let's go down to the lower garden. This is a new asparagus bed that I put in. And I transplanted some asparagus plants from my other bed. Some bigger, some smaller. I did that before I left on my trip, and when I came back, only about half of them had survived. So I've also put in some asparagus seeds. I want to get this established as a second bed because we really enjoy our asparagus, and you can eat it for a while, but then you have to let the plants leaf out and recharge their roots. Down here we have sweet potatoes, lemon trees, plenty of weeds. This is probably the most neglected part of the garden. Here I have a volunteer goldenberry plant, also locally known as uvilla. The fruit has this nice little paper husk like a tomatillo, and see if I can do this one-handed. It has this beautiful little golden berry that I enjoy eating. Delicious. The birds really enjoy these too. They're probably the ones that planted this. So my dear neighbor, Patty, gave me these 2 pumpkin plants. And the plants really aren't that big yet, but they've already got a lot of fruit coming on. I don't know what variety of pumpkin this is. She said they get quite large and that they will be orange, but I'm used to pumpkins starting out green and then ripening to orange. These are starting out yellow. I don't know if they'll ripen to orange, from yellow to orange, or if they'll just stay yellow. Time will tell. I'm a little nostalgic about this avocado tree that's in our front yard because I grew it from seed. I think it's been about 5 years ago now, but it's never produced. It does look like it's gonna flower, but the leaves don't look that healthy, and I'm not sure why. I really don't know a lot about fruit trees. I'm trying to learn, but yeah, it's all just a process. You can see it's trying to flower here, so I'm hopeful that we will start getting some fruit. I've tried amending the soil with different things and seeing if it will produce for me. I've been told I'll be better off starting with a new tree, one that's been grafted, and I still just want to give this one a chance. So it's been now, I want to say 8 months ago, that we moved these strawberry plants out of the main garden bed, or the main garden, where they were occupying 3 different beds. We put them along both long sides of the greenhouse. They're doing really great. Here's my main asparagus patch. Now, some time ago, let me see, maybe 6 to 8 weeks ago, we amended this bed with some compost, and a whole lot of volunteer tomato plants came up. And I pulled a lot of them out like weeds, and I potted some up and gave them away and planted them elsewhere. But I wanted to try allowing a few of them to grow and see what they might do. See if these tall asparagus fronds might provide enough support for some tomatoes to grow. Well, there was some miscommunication, and while I was gone on my trip, my husband thought that these were my prized tomato plants, and he had these teepee structures constructed to provide them support. They do seem like they're going to produce, and that's awesome because the tomato plants I had put inside the greenhouse did not survive my absence. And these are looking a lot better. My concern is that they're going to take over and shade out my asparagus. And what I really care about here is the asparagus. So this is kind of a delicate little balance that we're trying to find here with these. Maybe if I pull out some of the tomato plants and just allow a few of them to stay. I'm not sure what I need to do here, but for right now, I'm just letting it be. And here's more strawberries, so many strawberries. We've been getting way more strawberries than we can possibly eat. My freezer's full of strawberries. I've made strawberry rhubarb jam. I've made several batches of strawberry syrup. We're eating a lot of waffles lately because I started my own sourdough starter. And yeah, we're in strawberries. This is strawberry season and it doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. Now we're out in the chicken yard, duck yard. I don't know what you want to call it. Here's our birdhouse under construction, and the animals are taking refuge in some of the shade here. The sun is starting to come out now. If you saw our duck video, ducktails, we got these little ducklings and they've grown up quite a bit. We've been averaging about 4 or 5 eggs a day, which is really low egg production considering that we have 42 birds out here. But some of the chickens that we have on loan from the neighbor are beyond their egg laying years. They might still be laying 1 a week or something. And then most of our birds are young and haven't started laying eggs yet. So we're grateful for the few eggs that we are getting, and we expect to get a lot more in the future. Now I'm going to take you into the pumpkin patch. Now I call this the pumpkin patch because I thought I had planted pumpkin in it originally, and then my pumpkin turned out to be butternut squash. This is also where I grew a whole bunch of beans. Now this yard got planted before we went to Alaska last summer, so like in May and June, I was planting this. And it did really, really well. We harvested a lot of butternut squash, a lot of beans. And the goal is, this is my vision, and I feel like I'm very confident that it's going to work once we get it going. My vision is that we will alternate these 2 fields, the pumpkin patch and the chicken yard, every 4 to 6 months. We want to have the animals prepare the land, eating the bugs, eating the weed seed, eating the weeds, grass, whatever's there, eating it down and preparing the land for planting. Meanwhile, in the other yard, we'll be growing a crop. Once we harvest the crop, then we move the animals over. That's the idea. But it's going to take us a while to get this right, where we have the right number of animals, of mature animals, that can clear the property in the 4 to 6 months and prepare it for planting. And as you saw over there, those animals, most of them young animals, have not got that prepared yet. But this has mostly been harvested and it's growing a lot of weeds. I'm not too worried about the weeds as long as I don't get great big mature weeds with flowers and seeds like I'm seeing right here. This is what I really don't want, and I've been coming out here and pulling these because I don't want this so close to my upper garden, filling my upper garden with weeds. So cultivating these upper 2 lots, this adds a lot of growing space to our garden, which is great, but it also provides a lot more square footage or square meters, as the case may be, to manage. So I still have butternut squash growing out here. I'm going to be getting some more of them, but they also are just not doing as well as I had hoped because of that dry spell when I was gone on my trip. Some of these plants were young. Now, I mentioned that I had planted this like last June. Yeah, May or June, probably June is when I originally planted this. But then in September, because we still didn't have animals on the other side, I planted more butternut squash plants and more beans wherever I had open spaces. So these have been growing for a while. Ideally, in a perfect world, my chicken yard would be ready to plant right now, and I'd be bringing the animals over here to take care of this. But we're not there yet. Little by little, we'll try to get there. Some of these plants are looking nice and lush. And I'm sure we're going to get some fruit. Here's one down here. Even though we're not in full production right now, this is just a tiny portion of the produce we've harvested this week alone. Much more has been shared with the animals and friends and neighbors, and of course, we've eaten abundantly from our garden. I hope you've enjoyed this tour, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye, friend.